Alright, so in this problem, I have 3 to the power of x plus 3 to the power of x plus 3 to the power of x is equal to 9 to the power of x. So I'm going to first start by factoring out 3 to the power of x. So I have 3 to the power of x times 1 plus 1 plus 1 is equal to 9 to the power of x. Now, if I simplify what's in the parentheses, I get 3 to the power of x times 3 is equal to 9 to the power of x. Now, 9 here is the same thing as 3 squared. So now I have 3 to the power of x times 3 is equal to 3 squared to the power of x. And if I have something in the form a to the power of m to the power of n, this is the same thing as a to the power of m times n. And m and n, well, I can change the place of these two. So this is the same thing as a to the power of n times m. So if a to the power of m to the power of n is equal to a to the power of m times n, then a to the power of n times m, that should equal a to the power of n to the power of m. So 3 to the power of 2 to the power of x, I can switch the places of 2 and x. So now that's the same thing as 3 to the power of x times 3 is equal to 3 to the power of x to the power of 2. Now I'm going to let 3 to the power of x equal to the variable t. So now I have 3t is equal to t squared. Now if I subtract 3t on both sides, I get t squared minus 3t is equal to 0. Now if I factor out t, I get t times t minus 3 is equal to 0. So I have two equations now. I have t equals 0, and I have t minus 3 is equal to 0. T equals 0 is already a solution for t. T minus 3 equals 0, meaning t is equal to 3. So now remember how we set 3 to the power of x equal to t. So I have two equations. 3 to the power of x is equal to 0, and 3 to the power of x is equal to 3. So for 3 to the power of x equals 0, well, you can't take the power of a number and make it equal to 0. Nothing to the power of anything is equal to 0. Now 3 to the power of x equals 3, well, 3 to the power of 1 equals 3. So x is equal to 1, and this is my answer. Alright, so in this problem, I have x to the power of 3 plus x to the power of 2 is equal to 2. So to solve this, I'm going to first start by subtracting 2 on both sides. So then these two cancel out. And I have x to the power of 3 plus x to the power of 2 minus 2 is equal to 0. Now negative 2, this is the same thing as negative 1 minus 1. And now I'm going to rewrite this as x to the power of 3 minus 1 to the power of 3, because 1 is the same thing as 1 to the power of 3, plus x squared minus 1 is equal to 0. And 1 is the same thing as 1 squared. And now if I have something in the form a to the power of 3 minus b to the power of 3, this is equal to a minus b times a squared plus ab plus b squared. And a squared minus b squared, this is equal to a plus b times a minus b. So x to the power of 3 minus 1 to the power of 3, that's going to equal x minus 1 times x squared plus x times 1, which is x, plus 1 squared, which is 1. And then now I have this plus x plus 1 times x minus 1. And this is all equal to 0. So now, if I factor out x minus 1, I get x minus 1 times x squared plus x plus 1 plus x plus 1 is equal to 0. And if I simplify, I get x minus 1 times x squared plus 2x plus 2 is equal to 0. So now this gives me two equations. I have x minus 1 is equal to 0, and I have x squared plus 2x plus 2 is equal to 0. So for x minus 1 equals 0, x is obviously equal to 1, so that's one solution of x. And for x squared plus 2x plus 2 equals 0, I'm going to rewrite 2 as 1 plus 1. So now x squared plus 2x plus 1, that's the same thing as x plus 1 squared. So I have x plus 1 squared plus 1 is equal to 0, meaning x plus 1 squared is equal to negative 1. And you can't square something, or you can't take the power of something and make it equal to a negative number. You can't take the power of a positive number and make it equal to a negative number, meaning this is wrong. So my only solution for x is 1. Alright, so in this problem, I have x squared minus x to the power of 3 is equal to 12. So to solve this, I'm going to first start by subtracting 12 on both sides. So now I have x squared minus x to the power of 3 minus 12 is equal to 0. Now I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 1. So now I have x to the power of 3 minus x squared plus 12 is equal to 0. Now to actually find all the solutions of x to this problem, I actually need to first start by finding one of them, and using that one solution I can find the rest of them. So to do that, I'm actually just going to start by plugging in values of x and seeing if any of them will work. So 1, if we plug in 1, that's obviously not going to work. So let's go ahead and try 2. So if I plug in 2, I get 2 to the power of 3, which is 8 minus 2 squared, which is 4, plus 12 is equal to 0. 8 minus 4 is 4, 4 plus 12 is 16, so 16 does not equal 0. So now let's try negative 2. So if I plug into negative 2, I get negative 2 to the power of 3, which is negative 8, minus negative 2 squared is 4, plus 12 is equal to 0. Negative 8 minus 4 is negative 12, plus 12 is 0. So 0 equals 0, meaning my solution for x is negative 2. So this is one solution, and now using this solution, I can actually find the rest of my solutions. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to divide this by x plus 2. Because our solution is x equals negative 2, we're going to divide this by x plus 2, because if I plug in negative 2 for x, negative 2 plus 2 is 0. So now, if you go ahead and divide these, you should get x plus 2 times x squared minus 3x plus 6 is equal to 0. So now I have two equations. X plus 2 is equal to 0, which we already know that x is negative 2. We already know this is a solution. And x squared minus 3x plus 16 equals 0. And if I go ahead and solve this by the quadratic formula, I get that x is equal to 3 plus or minus the square root of negative 15 over 2. And the square root of negative 15, that's the same thing as the square root of 15i over 2.